Chapter 10. Just a Simple Carpenter. Leonard helped me set up shop in Bethlehem while we waited on the completion of the census. I had sold most of my belongings to make the trip to Bethlehem. Coupled with the previous trip to Jerusalem before leaving for David's city, I had depleted all of my resources. All I had left, in fact, included my tools, which could not be sold, and the stubborn donkey, which must be sold. Not only did we need the money, but the animal served no practical purpose. So we sold the donkey. Leonard and Sarah were glad to move us into one of the empty rooms of the inn when the crowds started thinning out. In exchange, I repaired all of the broken furniture in the rooms. I also effected some repairs to the building itself, which had long since seen its last fresh coat of paint or new roofing. Leonard wasted no time in bringing in friends and neighbors to examine my work and augment my meager purse with more jobs than I could get to at once. One day I accused Leonard of forcing his neighbors to give me work so that we would stay on at the inn. I kept the buildings in good repair, and Leonard could play grandfather to Jesus. The next afternoon, Leonard returned from the market with the news of a house for rent in the next street over. "If you would move out," he said, "I could rent the rooms for more than I would have to pay you to keep my inn in the best shape of all the hostels in town. And if you are just one street over, Mary can always bring the baby to visit with Sarah." We gathered our belongings and moved the following morning. By this time, I had a steady stream of customers who came to me to repair their old furniture or to patch up places in their houses. They all paid well, too. I must admit that my handiwork showed much more craft and skill than the other two carpenters in town ever achieved. After we moved, Mary and I carried Jesus over to the inn almost daily on the pretext that he wanted to see Grandpa Leonard and Grandma Sarah. But if we allowed ourselves to think about it, we adults enjoyed the company as much as the time playing with the baby. Often we found old Jerome seated at the table arguing over old times with Leonard. They carefully avoided the topic of the courtyard sheep stampede, and as the weeks turned into months, I could see the embers of the ancient friendship fanned into flame. It was on one of these nights, when Jesus was about 20 months old, that Jerome had curious news. I walked in on the middle of the old friend's conversation. "No, Leonard, I'm trying to tell you. Can you never listen?" Jerome was saying. "It's a caravan." "Yes, Jerome, so you said," the innkeeper countered, "and I said that we have caravans through here all the time. This is nothing spectacular." "But it is spectacular, old fool," the shepherd returned. "This is no ordinary caravan. It's not from anywhere near here. One of the boys asked a servant where they had traveled from, and they said some name that no one could understand. He said they spoke with a very broken accent, unlike that of the Midianites or even the Samaritans." "So these mysterious traders are from Egypt. What's unusual about that?" Leonard said. "Again, you're not listening, Leonard," Jerome said, exasperated. Then he noticed that I had entered the common room of the inn. "Joseph, my true friend," he said to me, "tell me, from which direction a caravan from Egypt would come?" "The west, of course," I replied. "Exactly, and this group travels from the east, with elephants whose ears are so much smaller than any I have seen coming from Egypt," Jerome exclaimed. "And besides, Leonard, old boy, this is no trade exposition. They're looking for a king. At least that's what the servant told Isaac." We did not receive the visitors from the east for another 3 days. They came into the yard where I had set up my workbench. I cannot describe the feeling that came over me when I looked upon the three leaders of the entourage. I use the word entourage because there's none other to describe the delegation standing before me now. "Can you show us the child king?" one of the men asked me. They were all three dressed like kings themselves. "I don't understand," I replied. "There are no kings here, only my son, my wife, and I." I know. Jesus was not really my son, but try to explain that to these strangers. "He must be here," the man asserted. "Look." He pointed to the sky, and I almost lost sight from the bright evening star that seemed to hover over our small house. "That is his star. We have traveled far, ever since the star appeared in the eastern sky. It is the star of a new king. Our charts confirm it." He swept his arm, taking in the five servants carrying satchels bursting with scrolls. "When did you say this star appeared?" I asked. When he told me the date, I knew that God had spoken in more than just angels. The star appeared in their sky on the very night that Jesus was born. "Mary," I called, "come and bring Jesus with you. We have very important visitors." The kings, they preferred the name Magi, wise ones, placed great store in their ceremony. They insisted that we sit in the shade as their servants rolled out a plush carpet and fanned us all with great palm branches. The focal point in this spectacle was Jesus. He sat between his mother and me, and I could have sworn he held his head up in the most regal of manner. In a show of great pomp and circumstance, each of the three kings in turn presented Jesus with gifts fit only for a baby of royal birth. He received a casket of gold, a bottle of frankincense, and a vial of myrrh. I almost fainted at the sight. Mary insisted that the kings remain with us. Leonard could not be jealous because most of their party stayed at his humble inn. Jerome and Joshua even made some money from this throng because they hired out 3 of their shepherds to keep the livestock away from the sheep or the town. The next morning, as we prepared their breakfast, the spokesman of the Magi came to me with a look of urgency on his face. "We are troubled, blessed young man," he said. We had intended to return to your current king and bring him the location of the little one. He had said he wanted to come and worship him as well. But last night we dreamed, all of us dreamed, that Herod meant harm to and not worship for the baby king. We will return to our country another way. We will not put the baby in more danger." What they said troubled me too, and that night I dreamt again.